Whenever you're ready, you just start.
So good morning, everybody. This is my presentation on my research project investigating how AI should be used within the United States Coast Guard. So to start off, I'm going to do some background. And starting off with the U.S. Coast Guard, it was established it started in August of 1790 as a revenue cutter service formed under the Department of Treasury meant for tax collecting, and was officially formed between the Revenue Cutter Service and the Life Saving Service in 1915. Throughout the 40s and 50s, they absorbed multiple bureaus and was transferred to the Department of Homeland Security in 2002. They have honorably fought in every war since the ratification of the United States Constitution and can be moved under the Navy in times of war. And they self-proclaim that they are the nucleus of which the Navy forms around in times of war. They have a Medal of Honor recipient, actually, and his name is Douglas Monroe, and was earned during the Vietnam War. So the 11 missions of the United States Coast Guard are national defense, port, coast, and waterway security, drug interdiction, migrant interdiction, marine safety, search and rescue, maintenance of navigational aids, enforcement of poaching laws, marine environmental protections, ice breaking, and intelligence gathering. So to discuss the organization, it is split between two branches: enlisted, which focuses on physical specialties, administrative positions, on-the-job education, and supervisory roles. Officers, meanwhile, are college educated, are more of a management role, and have department positioned specialties. So now to get some background on artificial intelligence. For history, it traces its roots back to 400 CE, with thoughts of machine automation in ancient Greek. In 1921, Karel Čapek coins the sentient machine as robots in his play, Rossum's Universal Robots. In 1949, Edmund Calise Berkeley finds similarities between the human brain and computers, particularly that human brains are formed with neurons that make connections and they strengthen over time, which is compared to computers, which are basically complex switches. In 1950, the Turing test is invented by Alan Turing, which, to simply put it, is where you have two people in a machine that are all separate from each other. One person puts out a question that the person in the machine both answer. And then if the machine can pass an authenticity test, basically the questioner has to guess which one is human. And if the robot is guessed human more than 50% of the time, they have passed the Turing test. And so in the late 1950s, John McCartney develops Lisp, an AI programming language that has been used since then and even to this modern day. In 1961, General Motors implemented die casting, transport, and welding robots in their assembly lines, and Weizenbaum created the first chatbot in the 1960s. In 1979, James Adams Stanford cart navigates a room full of obstacles, particularly chairs, on its own for the first time. And in 1985, Aaron, a drawing bot, was released. In 1986, Ernst Dickmann successfully puts first driverless cars at 55 miles per hour on an open road safely. And in 1997, Deep Blue, a chess-like robot, beats chess champion Garry Kasparov live on public TV. Cynthia Brezel also makes a robot capable of displaying human emotions at this time. In 2003, rovers Spirit and Curiosity deploy to Mars and operate independently for the first time. In 2012, Google neural networks learn how to ID cats by being shown pictures, which also shows similarities to how humans learn, as we compare pictures to the actual word that we're being taught. In 2017, Facebook puts two chatbots head-to-head, and they actually develop a brand new language all on their own. And in 2020, OpenAI releases ChatGPT-3, an AI chatbot that can draft emails, poetry, articles, and code. And they have built on that with ChatGPT-4, which has gained internet access and is able to draw using DALL-E. So to cover some of the current uses, there are Coca-Cola Christmas ads that have been documented to be created by AI, also used in cheating, and some general know-how has also been replaced with AI generally, coming from an example from YouTube that I saw of a bodybuilder using an AI workout and actually showing that it does decently well. So the current uses of AI in the military, we've got Ukraine, where it's been used to gather intelligence and process that intelligence And we really don't know beyond that because Ukraine is the first testing ground of AI. So proposed ideas are that AI with morals can replace humans in decision making, and that the goal is long-term integration. So for AI management, there's effective monitoring capabilities and planning/organizational assistance. Now, there are some plans by the Department of Defense that I've been able to find that show that AI is planned to be used for warfare systems, mostly to improve efficiency and independence, drone attacks, notably the swarm organization, which derives from bees and other animals that have been shown to attack much larger prey with their small feet and large numbers. They're also being shown to be planned use for strategic decision making, but needs help with ethics beforehand. Developing simulations, mainly for tailoring unit training and for making sure that soldiers are prepared most for going out to duty. There is also threat recognition and monitoring, hoping to improve safety and being able to more effectively clear buildings. So there's also simulating and solving complex cyber problems, an issue that we do have because humans generally take a long time to process things and enter code and problem solve, whereas AI tends to work quite a bit faster. And also with upgradable computer chips, we could see the creation of supercomputers that can handle this kind of workload faster than a human can. Then there's also optimizing transport and logistical costs, again going back to the efficiency and independence part, and casualty evacuation, meaning that we can run with less training on each soldier, which will allow us to more quickly turn fresh recruits that have been drafted into capable soldiers. So here's some quick statistics that I thought would be helpful to highlight. 636 mariners died in 2022. 445 of casualties over that same year were from drowning. There are 191 unknown deaths from 2022, and funnily enough, there were actually 2,022 injuries in the year 2022. So a quote that I think best symbolizes why we should be researching how AI should be developed within the U.S. Coast Guard is a statement from Rear Admiral Sean Reagan, who is the 4th District Commander of the United States Coast Guard, which is that we must integrate technologies at speed that enable our mission execution, all 11 of them. So to go over the methodology and research process, I use an interview method because it works with NC Senate Bill 49. It's similar to the survey that was then removed because of county policy, and can provide both kinds of data that I need, both qualitative and quantitative, and in a relatively easy format so where I can transfer qualitative data into more quantitative data to provide statistics. And it's easier to process than other kinds of methods. So the data collection process, I started with reaching out to members of the United States Coast Guard that were retired that I knew of, and then I even reached out to some bases that unfortunately couldn't get me any interviews. Then I scheduled time to meet with these people and conducted their interviews. After that, I put into a data processing platform to be able to provide effective statistics. So just a quick overview of the questions. I asked when they enlisted, what their rating was or their job. So for example, electronics technician, aviation maintenance technician, etc. Discharge date, when they left, so I had an idea of how long it's been since they were in the service and how they may have, how much information may be lost to them, or just they weren't informed of, weren't trained on. But what they thought of AI use so far, whether AI could and should be implemented within the United States Coast Guard, and whether or not it should be specialized for each job. And so my results, starting that section off, for opinions of possible uses, 14% agreed on pre-screening, but most just agreed to say anything helps. And so opinions of AI data uses so far, we have 33% were partially positive, but we had equal results among all the other responses, which were negative, neutral, positive, and partially negative. And so should AI be used in the United States Coast Guard? It's very split amongst responses of yes, no, and depends, but most people that say depends would be switched to yes if it was supervised. And so should be AI be specialized for each job rating? No. No, it should not. Most overwhelmingly agree on that, but agree that it should be specialized for each job grouping, each department. So power, headquarters, etc. So to conclude, AI should be used in the United States Coast Guard, but with supervision and only on specific applications, and there should be more independent research on this topic since I was not able to give or get that great of results, especially on certain ratings because of a limited participant base. So some reflections, I did have issues with Google Sheets, particularly with the fact that it could not understand that anything meant spread the result to everything, and between processing issues, that was just something that should be noted for next time. So finding units and participants, this initially started out as a project on the Army, actually, and because of the lack of unit responses or really records to find the activated units and contacting them, it was very hard to find units to the point that I eventually had to move to the United States Coast Guard, and even then, I was only really able to contact family and friends. And so communication issues, which are individual to units, I didn't have a script, and so I was speaking without any consistency between each unit. And so I think that if there was a consistent and peer-reviewed way of communicating to these units effectively, it may have yielded more participants. And so there could be specified to a specific rating or to non-rates, who are people who just graduated basic training and don't have a job yet. And could be also separated by level of command, because there are multiple levels, and I'm curious to see how it would change as you move up the chain of command. And then also curious to see how location could affect this. Unfortunately, the study wasn't able to get wide enough to capture multiple locations and separate them by that demographic. But also I have to mention that surveys are far greater than interviews because of a negative connotation with interviews, that they will take longer, and also surveys allow you to go without scheduling any time. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I will be taking any questions now.
All right, Vince, if you will turn your attention to Miss Grove, she's going to ask you your first question.
How did your initial exploration of the scholarly conversation lead to your final research question and project goal?
So there was a lack of scholarly exploration of AI applications in general, and particularly there wasn't any apparent initiative by the United States Coast Guard to go ahead and meet AI technologies and to be developing them for their service members. And so there were published known applications of the military and plans released by the other branches of service, and so this led to a curiosity into how best to develop AI within the United States Coast Guard.
What are the real-world implications or consequences related to your findings?
So the real-world effects of this project are that it is a probe/icebreaker, which means that it will enable future study into this sphere of research. So hopefully there should be more projects as a result of this, delving into how to best utilize AI for each branch of the service, and hopefully among a lot more participants than I was able to gather around. And it also guides leadership by giving guidance on how service members see best to use AI instead of using their imagination, which may be restricted to a certain job department or a certain rating. They can instead get a wider range of opinions and allow them to more effectively develop AI so that way their subordinates can utilize it to maximum potential. It should also increase attention to the use of AI in the military, since I believe that is a very under-discussed topic.
Thank you.
No problem.
Think back to the initial curiosity that sparked your inquiry. What other curiosities do you have, and how has this process prepared you to explore them?
So I am curious in how AI can be used in the United States Coast Guard all across a larger population, specific jobs and positions, and also AI in other branches of the military. What do the low-ranking privates, sergeants, and sergeants think about this. How do they think AI can be best utilized for their positions? Even low-ranking officers, because they are more in contact and have larger leadership and paperwork duties that they have to fulfill and balance. And I'm also curious about civilian applications. There isn't much research about that. And then there's also a comparison of organization and analysis. I'm curious to see how civilian organizations compare with each other and if there's any real pattern that you see with how civilian organizations are managed. And then I am prepared for that because this is a trial run. I learned a lot, mostly how to be resourceful, being able to look for specific resources that weren't really available from easy searches.
All right, thank you very much.